Okay, let me mute everybody. Okay, so this is the last day that we're going to go over the Craig Rochelle, the Bible study that he has. So bear with me, but it's just been really good and it's actually taught me a lot. So it kind of goes hand in hand from what I was reading from my Get Out of Your Head book last night. So I'll read over that as well. But this one, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. So I'm excited to read it. It says, because like you, every day I feel like I have more than I can handle. I rely on God to renew my mind. His truth is my battle plan. I continue to create new trenches of truth to replace my old ruts so they will give me thought pathways leading to life and peace. Where do you need Jesus today, right now? Where are your thoughts falling short of his life giving truth? Are you stuck in a negative, hurtful, and poisonous rut? What will you do? You will use the four tools God has given us to fix our thoughts and win the wars of our mind. Number one, the replacement principle, and number two, the rewire principle. Number three, the reframe principle, and number four, the rejoice principle. And it says, number one, you will remove the lie and replace it with the truth. We know that we have an enemy who is seeking to destroy us. His weapon is the lie. Our weakness is believing lies. And if we believe a lie, it will affect our lives as if it were true. The problem is that we don't realize that the lies we believe are lies. Hopefully, the lies you need to defeat are now clear to you. Number two, you will create new trenches of truth, which we talked about that several days ago, is creating new truths in your life, and like getting rid of the old. And it says, our brains have neural pathways, mental ruts we created through repeatedly thinking the same thoughts, which trigger our automatic response to external stimuli. To stop a behavior, we need to remove the lie behind it and replace the neural pathway. We dig truth trenches, how you renew your mind with God's truth. Number three, you will reframe it. We cannot control what happens to us, and we can control how we perceive it. We all have cognitive biases that cause us to see things in ways that do not reflect reality, but we have the power to do cognitive reframing, changing how we view the past and the future. You will change your perspective through prayer and praise. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by everything that is happening, but when we've had enough, God is enough. Not only is God enough, God is near. We stay mindful of his presence. When we do, it leads us to pray. Praying changes our brain, as does praising God. We praise him for the one who he is, even if the what is not what we want. As we praise God, he shows us and gives us peace of mind. Decide today that you will not think like the rest of the world. You will let your God renew your mind. Instead of becoming fixated on what you fix your thoughts on Jesus. He made you, he will sustain you, he can carry you, strengthen you, and empower you to do what he's called you to do. You are more than a conqueror through Christ. God is more than enough, and nothing can separate you from God's love. Let God change your thinking, he will change your life. So, a lot of us have consistent cycles of negative thought. A lot of us have consistent lies going into our head, and something that I think a lot of people can probably relate on is like, some things you really don't know if it's a lie. And it can be something super simple as, we all know the basic one, you are not worthy. And you can feel not worthy of hitting a promotion, or you can feel not worthy of leading people to their, life, what they need to be. And you might feel unworthy of like other things in your life, of ever becoming healthier, things like that. And they might come to you as like a truth, and you're like, but that is true. But if you're being like really real with yourself, if that's God's, like if God were sitting here right in front of you and he was to tell you a specific thing, he would not be like, you are unworthy. So now you can know what's the truth and what's not the truth. Truth might be, I'm a little bit lazy. That could be a truth, okay? He can tell you, sitting here face to face, and be like, you a little lazy. You need to get up, sis. So there's a difference between some of those. And so you can determine what lies you need to shift from, and what lies that are actually kind of true that maybe you need to mold into a truth. And something that this book gave me, Get Out of Your Head. So this can kind of give you like an idea of what you personally need to do today, because especially if we're sitting here and we're trying to promote this month, and we're trying to work towards the better lives, what we want for ourselves, it's really hard to do that when you constantly hit roadblocks of just negativity in your life, or when you constantly hit roadblocks of like God telling you these things, but you're not believing it, because just it's what's molded in your mind, and so this one, it says in the book, it says, changing our minds is possible. When you recognize the lie resting heavily on your shoulders, you can take that off, suffocating coat, and set it aside. What fear-filled thought is Satan using to suffocate your faith? Name it and say its name. So then it says, okay, so start separating your lies from your truth. So for instance, when you hear a lie in your head, for me personally, mine is everybody's going to leave me on my team. Nobody's going to stay with me. And it's not because of what my team has done. It's not because of that. It's just genuinely like my own insecurities. Like everybody's going to leave me in life. Nobody's actually going to stay with me forever. Blah, 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 blah. Then it tells you, it says to face that with a truth and choose to say, I believe that God is. I believe that God is. I believe that God is. And so this one, it says, I'm afraid that I won't be able to withstand whatever the future might hold. How many of you guys are scared of the future because maybe you've had a bad past? Maybe you've had some unpleasant memories of the summer times, or maybe you've had unpleasant memories of your family in the past, or it could literally be so many things. For me personally, like I know when it's wintertime, and y'all could probably face this, I'm really scared of seasonal depression. Like I'm really scared of seasonal depression with my family. My family goes through depression. My friends go through depression. And so that time really makes me nervous because I'm like, all right, Macy, you got to be the leader. You got to be the person who holds everybody on your back, but then you might go through depression too. So that can probably something that like holds you back from being able to be your best self. So maybe you're going into the season of life, especially since it's promotion month. I can relate this the most. You're afraid that you can't withstand whatever the future has to hold. And then it says to change it to more of like a truth and choosing to believe in God. And it says, I choose to believe God will not allow me to be tempted beyond what I can endure and will always give me the strength to overcome temptation. Then it says another statement. It says, I'm afraid that everyone will abandon me. That's literally mine. I wrote right beside it. I said same. And then it says, I choose to believe God has promised not to leave me, but he always keeps his promises. Then it says, I'm afraid of losing everything and everyone I love, aka me. I just told y'all that. And then it says, I choose to believe God will sustain me in my brightest moments of victory and my darkest moments of suffering. Then it says another one, I'm afraid of being found out. And then another one, it says, I choose to believe God knows every thought before I think it and loves me. So going on and on and on, you can think of probably 4 or 5 lies in your mind right now that are telling you that you can't do this, or that you're too afraid and you're letting fear kind of stop you dead in your tracks. And this chapter is actually called something fear. It's something fear. So it's based off of fear. Oh, it's called Unafraid. And what you want to do is tackle that fear like head on, instead of sitting here letting anxiety creep up on you and letting it like tell you like 15 different lies like I normally do. I'm tackling it head on. And I did this yesterday when I woke up. I was feeling great. It was good. And then I was getting off of my Sabbath, and I didn't really check my phone yesterday. And so I was like, had these fears in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I check my phone and then I get this type of message, or I get bad news or whatever. And I was like, okay, first off, stop making scenarios in your head. And it actually says in this book, it says that 97% of your thoughts are made up scenarios in your head. How many of you guys can relate to that? Because I know I 100% can. Or they're so made up to the point where I think that they're actually happening. Like, why do we, it's literally self-sabotage that we do for ourselves. And so that's what this book is about. And that's what Winning the War in Your Mind is about, is just retraining your brain to sit here and say, I'm not afraid of what's going to happen, because I know that God has got me through every single battle, through every single thing in life. And that's something that I've really had to teach myself, is just saying, through the hard times, I know that we're going to go through hard times, but through them, I'm confident because God always gets me through. Like, I'm coming up on a year of when last year I went through my depression like stage that I'd never been through before, and it was literally horrendous. I've shared that a million times. I'm coming up because it happened in July, and I'm like so terrified. I'm like, I do not want to hit that depression again. But I'm taking action steps now to prepare myself. It's a difference between sitting here and staying stuck in fear and saying, oh my gosh, I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything. I want to be safe. Or taking action steps and saying, I'm going to conquer this. No matter what, I'm going to conquer this. And just be confident in knowing that God's got you. And I know that it's a lot harder, especially for people who are just starting out with their faith. So I'm not sitting here disregarding you and like you just starting out on your journey and you being like, sis, I literally just opened a Bible yesterday. Okay. I don't trust God with anything. Used to be me. Okay. 100% used to be me. So don't feel like you're being called out, or don't feel like you can't relate. Think about times in your life, even if you've had like a life that you feel like has been unfair. Think about the times that God has always gotten you through. You're here today, right? Okay, you might have went through something traumatic 5 years ago. You might have went through something a couple years ago. I went through a really bad wreck a couple years ago and got airlifted, okay? And I'm still here, like all these things could have happened and I'm still just being like, God, you've got me. Like obviously you've got me for some reason. So like I could name all these different scenarios even if I'm unhappy with where I'm at now. And that's something that like obviously devotionals and the Bible and all those things talk about is just saying be grateful for where you're at. Like be grateful. A grateful heart can create so much more than an ungrateful heart. I know on days when I'm feeling ungrateful, number one, I feel disgusting. I'm like, Maisie, why? Like you have everything that you need and you're still complaining. And so I have to check myself and I have to just reassure myself that I'm blessed. And then another thing in this book, I told my team this yesterday, and I really want you guys to focus on this. But the title of this one is it says worried about many things, and it says how many of us are dragging through our days weighed down by anxiety. Many of us find our thoughts circling around problematic circumstances or people. For others of us, anxiety has become the soundtrack of our days, so familiar we hardly notice it playing in the background of every scene. Please know that I'm talking here about the patterns, not about actual anxiety that you need to go seek a professional for. And it says the enemy has ensnared us with two little words, what if? With those two little words, he sets our imaginations whirling, spinning tales of the doom that lurks ahead. Okay, you guys. Me personally, I ask myself what if about a billion times a day, and it drives me absolutely up the freaking walls where I'm like, Macy, can you just like stop thinking for a second? And that's where I go into like meditation. And I'm like, okay, just don't think about anything for a second. Like last night before I hopped on our Zooms, Dallas and I just sat outside, like no phones or anything, and just sat there in the rain, like listening to the rain and stuff. We were just like, okay, we need to turn our minds off. And it says, but our tool for defeating what if is not surprisingly found in two words, because of God, or because God. And so anytime that you're going through a storm or anytime you're going through something this month and you're like, this isn't fair, or this is really not, this doesn't make sense. Why is this happening to me? I thought it was going to be perfect this month. I thought everything was going to go great. I thought that this person was going to stay in my life forever. I thought this person was going to be a rock star and they turned out to be a dud. Blah, blah, blah. There could be so many different scenarios you can make up in your head. I want you to turn those statements into because God. And this one, it gives you just different scenarios. It says because God clothes the lilies of the field and feeds the birds of the air, we don't need to be anxious about tomorrow. Because God has poured his love into our hearts, our hope will not be put to shame. Because God chose us to be saved by his strength, we can stand firm in our faith no matter what the day holds. So if you find yourself going through what ifs today, or finding yourself going through what ifs tomorrow, or the rest of this month, that is something I want you to kind of go back to and just start claiming because God. And because God sustains you through your weaknesses, he's going to get you through the strongholds. Or you could restate that over and over again and again. If you're just starting off with your faith, think about the times in the past of how many times he's gotten you through situations that you never thought you would see yourself out of. Okay, you're on here right now on this prayer Zoom, and probably years ago you would have never thought you were picking up a Bible. Okay, that was me. So that could be your scenario, and just start stating because God, and that can kind of bring the confidence with the situations that you're holding, and that you're going to go through, because we all know that life is not easy, and we all know this business isn't easy. So having those two hand in hand and then having God on your side, you feel like you can definitely conquer a lot more. And I want you guys going through confidence in your life, knowing that you can do anything, not necessarily by yourself, because I've tried doing things by myself and it leaves me just feeling empty. But you can do things with God on your side and just winning the war truly in your mind and taking steps forward to like stop the lies when they start coming into your mind. Just pause and say them out loud. Say what you're thinking and say, okay, I feel so unvaluable to this team. Then you're going to replace it with, because God has made me, he knows that I'm like searching for my purpose. He's going to provide me. He's always provided for me. And just stating those back to back and combating that, it's going to retrain your mind and make new neural pathways in your mind to believe the good in everything instead of just the bad. So if you're practicing that every day, you're going to see a difference. If you're someone who is going to practice that once a week, or maybe just once a month, or not even just once a month, maybe it's once every 2 months, this is not going to be as beneficial to you. So you can't expect to pray one time and for God to bless you throughout your entire life and you be good. I know people like that. They're like, "Oh, I prayed 7 years ago. I'm good. I'm solid." And I'm like, "How have you made it through your life?" Like, don't be that ignorant, okay? Please don't be that ignorant. Just constantly fill your cup up with spiritual development, with whatever it is. Hop on these if you can. Get on YouTube if you can. Listen to Steve Harvey. He's motivational, but he's also devotional. So he's spiritual and motivational at the same time. I really like listening to him. You can listen to Stephen Furtick, Michael Todd, Sarah Jakes. Like, you can literally listen to anything on YouTube. So access that, especially on days that you feel drained. Promise you, it fills your spiritual cup back up, and you're like, you know what? Even though today's a hard day, I'm gonna get through it. And then guess what? The next day is better. The next day is better after that. And you just get to sit here and be a blessing to other people and say, you know what? Since you went through that, I went through that a couple months ago. I can teach you that. And it just is a constant blessing for generations and generations. So hopefully that gives you some perspective today, because we're going into a month that is just truly incredible. It's promotion month for a lot of people. A lot of people promoted last month, but also it's just a new month. The beginning of months is always the most exciting, because you get to like get a start, like a restart. So it's going to be fun, and you might come with challenges along the way. So know when you face those challenges, go back to that, and you will feel confident going through those. I promise you. State them out loud over and over and over again, and create those new neural pathways, and you'll be so excited that you did. So hopefully that helps.